Great. Welcome, everyone, to the Zehr Institute for Restorative Justice. My name is Jordan Michelson, and I am currently a master's student for the MA in Conflict Transformation here at the Zehr, or at the Center for Justice and Peace Building. And I'm also currently the graduate assistant for the Zehr Institute for Restorative Justice, and would like to welcome you to this webinar series. We have a very exciting series on restorative justice in education currently taking place. In 2014, a letter was distributed from the U.S. Department of Education and the U.S. Department of Justice cautioning schools that disparities in discipline statistics based on race, color, or national origin must be addressed in order to help all students succeed and to prevent students getting caught in the school-to-prison pipeline. Among the recommendations for ways to dismantle this pipeline was an emphasis on restorative justice. This is not new data. 30 years of educational research has demonstrated these disparities, but what is fairly new is the research shows that when schools implement restorative justice practices, the disparities decrease. Overall, restorative justice reduces the need for exclusionary discipline by addressing the root causes of challenging behavior and by building more just and healthy communities that prevent conflict in the first place. Now, in our first webinar series, we heard from Anita Wadwa and 5 students from a school in Houston as they shared about their leadership in facilitating circles and helping to address school conflict. Today, we are hearing again from students, this time in Fairfax County, who are part of an honor council at Thomas Jefferson High School. This webinar series is going to be available on our website. The details are listed here. You can find the recordings at the Zehr Institute website, and we hope to highlight some of the good restorative justice work that is being done in the schools. Now, a quick note, we would like to share an announcement from some of the people that made this webinar series possible, and that is coming to the table, and they would like to share this video announcement for you all.
Coming to the Table, a racial reconciliation program affiliated with the Center for Justice and Peace Building at Eastern Mennonite University, is pleased to co-sponsor this webinar series on restorative justice in education. Members of Coming to the Table are dedicated to dismantling the so-called school-to-prison pipeline and strongly support the introduction of restorative justice approaches to school discipline and the creation of healthy school communities as keys to success in this endeavor. Coming to the Table provides leadership, resources, and a supportive environment for all who wish to acknowledge and heal wounds from racism that is rooted in the United States history of slavery. You can learn more at comingtothetable.org. We hope this webinar series inspires many people to find effective ways to take action in your community to build a better world today and for future generations.
Great. And with that, I'd like to introduce our panel today. I'm actually going to hand it over to Kathy Evans, who's going to facilitate this conversation on student-led restorative justice in Fairfax County. And we look forward to the conversation. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen right now. And Kathy Evans, if you would like to introduce our guests, and we look forward to the conversation. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jordan. I am Kathy Evans, and I'm a professor here in the Department of Education, where we are working to bridge some of the divides between restorative justice and education and make things cohesive together. And one of the things we've been focusing on in this webinar series is how students are being involved in leading restorative justice practices. And so I'm very excited to have some students with us today who are talking about their work in Fairfax County. I'm actually going to let the other panelists to introduce themselves, maybe just your name and maybe your role in restorative justice in Fairfax County. So Do we want to start with Sophia since you're up here?
Sure. Hi everyone, I'm Sofia Moses and I'm a junior at Thomas Jefferson High School. I am current chairperson of the Honor Council at TJ, which is a student-led organization which works with faculty advisors and administration to facilitate restorative justice circles for students who have committed academic or honor code infractions.
I'm Kristin Myers, and I am a sophomore at TJ, and I am the current vice chairperson of the Honor Council.
I'm Shawn Stickler. I'm one of the faculty co-sponsors for the Honor Council at TJ.
And my name is John Struck, and I'm the other faculty co-sponsor.
Hi, I'm Vickie Shoap, a restorative justice specialist for Fairfax County Public Schools.
Thank y'all. It's great to have you here today. Thanks for spending some time with us this afternoon. We will be taking questions from participants, the attendees, and I'm looking over here at a list, and there's quite a few of you, and so I would just encourage you, if you have questions for the panelists, please submit those. I encourage you to wait until later in the webinar so that you can see if those questions are asked from the beginning, but I'm sure that there will be some questions and we will address those at the end. I guess to start off, what is the Honor Council and how does it work?
So the Honor Council is a group of students that at our school that works with faculty advisors and administration to promoting a community of academic integrity. And the way it works is if a student commits multiple honor code infractions, they have the option of coming before the Honor Council. So far, we don't take students that have committed only one academic infraction or something like that, but if they've had multiple honor code violations, they have the option of coming to us. And like most restorative justice circles, the process is entirely voluntary. So the student has to own up to their actions, own up to their academic integrity violation, and really want to participate in the circle, want to make things right. And once the student admits guilt for what's happened, they come before us and we work with the student, the teacher, any other students involved in the situation, and we facilitate a restorative justice circle with them. When we met with Ms. Shoap to be trained, since our school has very few situations that need restorative justice for things such as stealing or fights or things like that, we really want to just focus on the honor code and academic integrity violations, since we don't have many of the other types of violations at our school. So we focus a lot on how to make things right after an academic integrity violation, how to really repair the relationships that were harmed in the classroom, whether that be with just the student and the teacher or the student and their peers.
Okay, thanks, Sophia. Does anybody want to add anything to that down there?
No, she did a great job. That's pretty much what they do.
Pretty good. Yeah, good, thorough description. Just a little bit more maybe about how the honor, you mentioned Vickie came and trained you. So how did the Honor Council get started?
So in the summer of 2013, a group of parents, faculty, administration, and students convened for an academic integrity workshop where we really identified the main causes of our low integrity at TJ and what we could do to make that situation right overall. And so one of the things that came out of that workshop was the Honor Council. We decided that would be a good idea to amend the overall situation. And so we started off with 7 members. And originally we thought we would be a traditional punitive process, restorative justice. We would decide whether or not a student was guilty of a violation, that kind of thing. But then the assistant principal that was in charge of our council told us about the restorative justice approach, and we decided that's something we wanted to learn more about. So we got in contact with Ms. Shoap and we got trained. We went to our level 1 training. And I think at the beginning there was definitely some hesitation whether or not we should continue with the restorative justice approach, just because we were new to the process and we were trying to learn about it and we didn't really understand, the power of the process yet. But I think what really made us buy into the process was the fact that our mission statement is to foster a community of integrity. And when we learned about how restorative justice can lower recidivism rates, we really decided that this is a process that was going to help us to pursue our overall goal as a council, rather than the punitive process.
Okay. Hey, Kristin, can I follow up with you just a little bit?
Sure.
You said initially there was some hesitation. What was the initial hesitation about?
I think it was just seeing how the process would kind of play out and how it would help people to have that accountability. I think there was a little bit of doubt that maybe it was a soft process at first, at the beginning. But we really saw, especially during training when we did some role play activities, how the process really helped people to understand how their infraction had hurt the whole school community. And that's what we really wanted to get out of the Honor Council, was have people who have committed violations understand how the whole school is affected by that one incident.
Good, thanks. Sophia, so Kristin mentioned that there was some fear of it being soft. Have you found it to be soft?
I have not, and the great thing about the Honor Council is that we're not the ones determining guilt. We're not determining wrongdoing. It's something that the students come to after they've already admitted up to it. So a common misconception that we're facing at our school is that people think that it's an easy way out of the administrative process, where the Honor Council isn't an easy way out. It's more moving forward in the future to try to repair the relationships that were harmed without just forgetting about it or letting things be awkward between the student and the teacher. So oftentimes students and the teacher will come to an agreement that they do have a 0 on the exam that they cheated on or something like that. But the Honor Council really takes a step further to repairing the relationship. So it's not like it's a substitution for the punishment or the consequences that happen after an academic integrity violation. It's more the step past that, the step to, this is what's happened, how do we move forward from here?
Great, thank you. Can you tell a little bit about, either one of you, about the training that you got with Ms. Shoap? What did that look like?
Yeah, so we had 2 trainings. The first was the level 1 training, and that was kind of an intro to what restorative justice is. So it was more like facts and stuff and about the process. And then the level 2 training was actually doing the role play activities and kind of learning how to be a facilitator and how to facilitate the process.
Great, great. Were there surprises when you were doing the training? Were there surprises about restorative justice and what popped up?
Well, I think I was kind of surprised because I remember we were all, like Kristin mentioned before, that we were all a little hesitant to go forward with the process. But I think when we really sat down the circles, we really actually went through and saw what, like, simulated a circle itself. We saw the power of the circle and how really facing someone, like looking them in the eye and talking through it can really have a huge impact.
Great. Great. I know you're going, you went off script. These aren't questions you sent us. Sorry, thank you. Those are good follow-up questions, and I appreciate the extra information. So I guess one of the questions that is on the list that I sent you, tell a story about a time, like just tell the experience and what happened. Give an example of how it's worked.
I remember, I believe my first case last year, since we started holding circles second semester last year, was a student that had committed many honor code infractions, and they were very well known in the school, so it was very difficult for the Honor Council to pick facilitators for that case. The Honor Council, what we do is, since we have enough members on the council that not every single member has to participate in every single circle, if you have a relationship with a student or you know them personally, then you're able to recuse yourself and step out of the circle and let other facilitators take charge. So this was beginning to, just from the beginning, this was a difficult situation because the student was very well known, and it was a little difficult because it was one of our first cases, but I think the Restorative Justice Circle worked very well for that case. The issue was, I would say, a little bigger than most of the cases that we've handled in the fact that there were other students involved. It was a little bit of a big case to tackle, especially for our first one. And for me, since that was my first circle, it was very powerful because I really got to see like the restorative justice in action. And another important thing I think about restorative justice is that everything in the restorative justice process is completely confidential. So this student afterwards, like I said, they're very well known in the school. People see them all the time. But as honor council members, we sign a confidentiality agreement, and we really stick to that. So anytime outside of honor council, anytime like even after the circle, like there's no mention of that. We really try to move forward, help the student assimilate back into the community. And I think that was really powerful to show the resolutions that can come out of an honor council or a restorative justice circle, and how it really helps people move past their mistakes and learn from them.
Okay, thanks. Kristin, did you want to share a story as well?
Well, the second case I was on, I remember in the pre-conference, we went through all the questions that we would ask in the circle. And when we got to the question about how the student thought that his actions had affected other people, he was kind of at a loss for words. He didn't really know what to say at all. And so we told him, there's 3 days till the conference. This is just stuff that you can be thinking about. And then the teacher's big thing in that conference was how it had affected her and how it had affected the school, and how, going off into his future, he would kind of carry this along with him. And so I remember going to the circle, kind of wondering how it would go, and I was really surprised at how much the student had really thought about his answers to the questions, and he just seemed like he had really thought it through, and he gave a really thoughtful response to how it had affected other people. And I think it really helped the teacher see how he was, being accountable for his actions, and he was willing to move on from it.
Great, thank you. I hear you talking about I heard you earlier talking about the power of the process. I think sometimes people talk about restorative justice and they use language like that, like the power of the process, and people kind of come away with it like, oh, it's some, kind of a magical thing. But what do you mean by the power of the process? Either one of them.
I think that it's different from the traditional punitive process in the fact that when a student commits a violation and they choose to go along with the administration, they just kind of get a punishment and that's it. And they don't really hear anything else. They don't get to make amends with their teacher or with their students, that were also impacted. But then with the restorative justice approach, they do get to do that. And I think that there's power in the fact that they get to see how other people have been affected, and they get to move on with that information, knowing how their infraction has hurt other people in the past, and then they can use that moving on to think through their choices in the future. And so I think there's a power that goes along with that discussion process.
Also, another thing to add is that there was one case that I worked with a student and teacher this year, and the teacher actually told, I was one of the facilitators, he told me and the other facilitator that going through this process actually helped the teacher gain a lot of gain respect for the student, because although the student did cheat on tests, he was very impressed with how the student handled the situation. And I think, like Kristin mentioned, it really helps students understand what's wrong with the situation, and that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to help students understand why this is wrong, so that in the future they don't commit academic integrity infractions in the future, and they really understand how it impacts their teacher, how it impacts their peers, the community, and I think that's really powerful in and of itself.
Great, yeah. Have you seen situations where somebody went through the honor council process and then it just didn't work? I mean, like they continued to cheat or continue, like have you seen any of those where it didn't work?
Well, we wouldn't find out if they committed another violation after the fact.
Because it's confidential.
But I was on a case where the student had decided to come to the council, and then after a while they just decided that they didn't want to do it anymore. So we asked for some information. about why, but we actually haven't gotten that back yet. So.
Great. One of the questions that I did send. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. So we had one instance where we had a case last year where the student went through the process, but I think it was pretty obvious during the circle that he wasn't really buying into the process. And so after the circle was over, I talked to the facilitators and I asked, "What did you think about it?" And one of the facilitators said, "Yeah, he kind of doubted what was going on. He didn't think that the student was sincere about it." So I think we do see sometimes where a kid is still trying to play the game or still trying to work the system, but they spoke about this power, and yeah, I've seen students that I would think would treat this as being pretty trivial were pretty moved by the process, and there was a real change in their aspect and in how they came out about things.
Well, since you're speaking, Dr. Stickler, let me just ask you, and is it Strzok?
Struck.
Strzok. Let me ask y'all, so I know that this is a student-led process and that the students kind of take the leadership. What is your role in being advisors? What do you do? How do you, yeah.
We order the pizza. We do a lot of coordinating, but the students even do most of that. I think more than anything, we're probably just an oversight, just that's what I see we do, right?
The culture in the building is to give students a lot of opportunity for leadership, and we've already determined that Sophia and Kristin cannot graduate because they are so good at what they do, so they'll be doing this for several years.
Okay. And they're aware of this agreement?
Yes, they are. They don't like it, but that's too bad.
Agreement's kind of a strong term. It's not really an agreement. It's just an understanding.
Right.
Yeah, I think that just guidance. They come up with ideas and we give them a little, hey, maybe this or that, but they really do it. We're just kind of there along for the ride.
So are you actually in the room when the processes are occurring, when the circle processes are happening?
Yes.
There's always at least one member of the faculty in there, other than the teacher that's in the circle.
Good. I'm getting some questions coming in, and there are people who are asking for more concrete things. And so I want to make sure that we don't leave just talking about this as an idea, but we actually talk about how it works and what the specifics are. I was about to ask this question though, and we'll get to the concrete pieces here in just a second, and I'll respond to some of the questions. But specifically, what are some of the challenges that you've experienced? What are some of the harder aspects?
I would say one of the challenges that we face is sometimes the misconceptions among the student body of what the Honor Council does. Sometimes students hear Honor Council and they think, they kind of picture like a line of us sitting there with like banging gavels saying like guilty or not guilty. And we're really trying to publicize the fact that we don't determine guilt. We work with students after to help them come back into the community and to repair the relationships that were harmed. So what we did in the beginning of this year is we made a video. We gave many presentations to the entire school to really publicize what exactly the Honor Council does, what our mission is. And some other things that some other difficulties that we face is when students are choosing to come before the Honor Council or to go through with administration. Like I said before, sometimes people aren't exactly sure what the Honor Council does, and they're a little intimidated by the fact that their peers will know what happened. They'll know about their academic integrity violations, but what we've done is we really try to make a big deal that everything is confidential. Everything that comes before the Honor Council will not be shared with anybody else, and we've given frequently asked question sheets to the administration, so when the student has the option of coming before the Honor Council, they can learn more about it before they make a decision. So we're really trying to help students understand what the Honor Council is, what restorative justice is, and help them gain understanding in that. So hopefully then more people will choose this option.
Great. Anything else about that anybody wants to bring up? About challenges or concerns?
Yeah, there was we've met as a part of this process in introducing the Honor Council. We've met with the faculty on a number of occasions, portions of the faculty, and they had a lot of questions. And it was initially there was some reticence among faculty members to participate in circles, to participate in the process. And so we had to go talk to them and say, hey, this is what's going on, and we could really use your help in this, and then we had to explain the whole process to them. And I understand the reticence. When Vickie first showed up and started talking about restorative justice, I was thinking, wow, we're in a kumbaya moment here, and I was not very excited about it. And then when we actually started going through the training and running some of the, doing some of the practice circles, I could see how it could impact people. But what really swayed me was Vickie speaking, said that she had been a probation officer.
I worked at the level.
Right,
yes.
right. And she saw how effective it had been, and so that's kind of what sold me. And then and so I can explain, I can share that with faculty and help them realize that there's validity in this process, that it's not just, we're not just doing it so that everybody feels good, we're doing it because it works. And I think that resolves some of their issues and concerns. They also were concerned that it would take power away from them as faculty members. Holding a 0 over a student's head is that's a pretty large deterrent in many cases, and I think they were afraid that they would lose that. And as we've gone through the process and as we've shared with them, they realized, no, that's they're a part of the decision-making process. It's not us. So I think that was the biggest challenge was trying to get faculty on board with this.
Good. Thank you. So I am still getting a couple more questions just about pragmatics. So maybe we could start at the very beginning. Let's just say I'm a 10th grader and I have to write a paper for my English teacher, and I go and grab lots of sections from the internet and from other people's works, and I have done this on numerous occasions, right? But I don't seem to get plagiarism. So kind of walk me through what would happen.
So once the teacher knows that you've committed or that you've plagiarized, and they report it to administration, if it's a multiple offense on the student's record, then they would have the option of coming before the Honor Council. And if
does the teacher, hang on a second, does the teacher confront me first?
It depends on the situation, whether they just report it or if they talk to the student before reporting it. The student has to, or the teacher has to write up a referral form, which goes to administration for them to look at the student's record.
Okay.
So it depends on a case-by-case basis.
Sure.
From there, if the student chooses to come before the Honor Council, then so we'll receive the referral forms and we'll send emails to the student and the teachers if there were other students involved. In this case, there wouldn't be other students involved, so it would just be the student that plagiarized and the teacher. We would also contact the student's grade level administrator, and we would set up pre-conferences with each individual. We would ask the same questions at each pre-conference, and the questions that we target are what happened from your perspective? Like, what happened the night you were writing the paper? What happened when, for the teacher, like what happened when you found out that the student plagiarized? The next question would be, usually we ask follow-up questions to those, but kind of the main order of questions is what happened, who was affected, like how do you think this affected the community? So maybe the student would think that this affected their peers because they were up all night writing the paper, whereas they just took the shortcut, the easy way out, and they looked up something online. We would ask that to the teacher as well. We would ask what they think needs to be done to repair the relationship in this situation. And so usually we ask questions along the lines of what happened, who is this affected, and what needs to be done to make amends. And then if everyone agrees, everyone kind of is willing to go through with the circle, then we'll move forward with the circle process and we'll ask those same questions. And everyone's in the circle. We go around with a talking piece. Everyone has an equal opportunity to speak. And we ask those same questions so that everyone can hear everyone else's perspective. And what comes out of the circle is an agreement, which is signed by all parties that they agree on something that will be done in the future to make amends. So for example, in past cases, I've had something like the student will have check-ins with the teacher to tell them how they're doing, what they're doing to, like in their classes, how they're working harder, how they're like trying to go to tutoring sessions. So instead of cheating on the test, they're actually working harder to study to make up for that. And it depends on case-by-case basis what they come out of, or what comes out of the circle. But as student facilitators, we do not have an input as to what the outcome should be. We just facilitate the discussion between the students and teachers involved so that they can decide.
And so the decisions then are made by the others in the circle?
Yes.
The teacher, the student?
Yes.
And then those agreements are sent to administration.
Okay. What happens to the students' like record and all of that? Is there a negative impact? So I've plagiarized several papers. What happens to my record?
That would be administration. That would handle.
Okay.
Obviously, if it's been referred to the administration, there's a record made there, and that's one of the things we actually want teachers to do is make referrals so that students aren't hopscotching.
Yeah.
Or and cheating here and getting. So yeah, it's kept. Yeah, the referral stays in their folder, and so yeah, that's
okay.
there. As far as does it go with them to college, or how permanent is your permanent record? Those kind of things, I don't know, but yeah, the records are kept just so that we can keep track of what's going on here for the most part.
Great. So you said that there was a group of students who are trained in facilitation. How are those students chosen?
So when we first formed the Honor Council in August of 2013, it was a few students who were at the workshop and then others who were handpicked by administration from student government and other student leadership positions. Last year, we did an election process where students had to first fill out an application to run with an essay and stuff like that, and then they gave a speech to their class, and then the class elected them. And then this year, we opted for an application and interview process. So we're actually in the midst of running this right now. So we will be collecting applications, which is still kind of a short answer essay format. And then we will narrow that down as the council to semifinalists who we will have an interview with. One of the faculty advisors, Sophia or me, and the student. So we'll just basically ask them the same questions kind of to gauge their communication skills and their character, and then we'll decide from that group.
Okay. And then once people are chosen and they go through, I think you said a level 1 and a level 2 training. Can you say a little bit more about that training? Like, what do you do in that training? How many hours is each of the levels, etc.?
That's probably better for
Well, I know that we did the training over 2 different days, and I want to say it was probably about 5 or 6 hours for the level.
A little longer, but
7-ish hours.
Our level 1 is typically 3 or 4 hours. That's just kind of the RJ 101, the philosophy and things like that. And I remember we did that over the summer. And then we came back and did our traditional level 2 that we use for adult facilitators. We really didn't change anything for the students. And so that was a full day of practice. We do a lot of different activities in that circle, a lot of relationship building, but we also do a lot of role play. And then we provided the mentoring for the first council, our adult facilitators. Now the students are experienced enough that they can mentor each other.
Okay. So in the initial...
And they always have us, the restorative justice specialists and our trained facilitators, to come out and help them and mentor them for some of the larger cases. So they can still call on us when they need that. They're pretty much on their own for the smaller stuff, and they do that by themselves now because, again, they can mentor each other now. And of course, Dr. Stickler can help with that as well because the faculty advisors went through the same training with the students.
Okay. How many of the teachers have been trained?
Just one of the two.
No, I mean...
I think I'm the only one in the building.
Okay. Wow, so it really is completely student-run, student-led.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, except for, of course, I wouldn't say it's training, but the students have done they've made videos and they've done presentations for the teachers in the building. So they're doing a lot of that. They're doing that all themselves as well.
Great, great. Anything else about training you want to say, anybody?
I will say that we have a certification process in Fairfax County Public Schools for facilitators of restorative justice. There's a certain number of hours of training, of mentoring, of co-facilitation. We have 3 students on the Honor Council that are senior facilitators that are officially certified as restorative justice facilitators.
Oh, wow.
So those are the more senior students, and then they, of course, will help the new students coming in next year.
Great. Excellent. So I'm going to open up and just ask if any of the participants have any further questions about details, things that you'd like to know a little bit more of. And I'm going to go ahead and ask the advisors, or any of you, I'm sure that there are people who are watching who might like to start a similar program in their school. What kind of advice would you give for a school wanting to start a similar approach?
So it's interesting how it came about. We had some integrity issues here, and some students were having problems. And actually, what happened is that some of the senior student leadership a few years ago actually approached the administration and said they gave them a list of teachers and they said these teachers are making it easy to cheat in their class, and you need to punish the teachers and reprimand them.
Wow.
And so the administration actually asked them, well, do you know which students have cheated? You have a list of teachers. Do you know any students that have been involved? Oh, no, we don't want to do anything like that. And so that group of students left, and not much happened. But it came to the fore that there was an issue. And so what happened 2 years ago is that we had this workshop, and students were invited, and the students had a different attitude. The previous attitude had kind of been, it's our job as students to cheat, and it's your job as teachers to catch us. And the new attitude was more, this is not what we want our school to be. And so the students were actively a part of it. And we started with this workshop, and it really was a series of breakouts, and we were just kind of, there were a bunch of questions being asked about what we should do to help these integrity issues. And so the conclusion was that we needed an honor council. And so we put together a committee to start trying to put together an honor council, and we went to our principal, and we had we had the idea that we would do one of these traditional. We kind of saw the students in robes in front and doing that whole bit. And our principal said, no, we're going to use restorative justice. And so you need to learn about what it is. And so we started exploring it. And FCPS had adopted it. I believe that year was the first year that they said.
2011.
Okay.
I was hired.
Okay. So it was very recent in the county, and they said this is the process that should be used. And so we just started learning more about it, and then you know, we had the students that wanted to participate, and we went through the training, and we said this is the process we want to use. We actually, in the middle of the training, we actually took a step back and said, do we want to go further with this, or do we want to pursue this in a more traditional role or manner? And the students said, yeah, we want to go with restorative justice. So I think if a school or if an administration or students or teachers were interested, the first thing they need to do is kind of build a nucleus of individuals that are interested in addressing the issues at all. Not just, hey, we want to start restorative justice, but hey, we want to address some of these problems, and what are some of the ways that we can do that?
Yeah, and one piece of advice I would give for advisors, in this school we have a culture of allowing students to take off and run a lot of clubs. And that was, when I first came to the school many years ago, that was one of the hardest things for me to do, is just to let go and let the kids run. You just got to trust, and that's part of restorative justice overall, is that you have to trust the kids to do the right thing. And so far we've had no real problems. If you stumble and the kids do make a few mistakes, that's why the adults is there to guide them, say, okay, let's go. You did well, but here's how we can do better. But you want to give the kids a lot of the authority. I think it'll make the whole entire program. The student body would probably buy in more into it if they saw responsible students, co-students, as they go to school with every day, running these things.
So for Sophia and Kristin, do you find that you can be a part of things because you're fellow students? That if it were happening from an adult, if a leader, an adult in the school was trying to say the same things you're saying, like, do you have more say because you're fellow students, because you're equals?
Well, I definitely think in the circle itself, it's more powerful that they're hearing the perspective of fellow students. I'm not sure if that's exactly what you were asking, or like, I think having another student say, I think just in general, but especially about academic integrity infractions, students are constantly told, like from elementary school, like cheating is wrong, don't do it. And it is wrong, people know that, but I think it's much more powerful to hear students tell the fellow students that, you know, this affects everyone, this affects us, this affects our entire community, and this is why we don't do it. So I really think having fellow students working with fellow students, like working with each other, is more powerful and helps students see the impact that it really has on the school community.
And I think at the academic integrity workshop, as Dr. Stickler said, we really wanted to make this a student-led movement, a student-led initiative. We want to be the faces of change in our culture. We don't want we don't need the administration to tell us that cheating is wrong. You know, we as a student body should know that, and we should foster our own community of trust. And so I think that the Honor Council is definitely a way that the student body as a community is really taking that initiative for ourselves.
Good. Good. Thank you. Yeah, I have that conviction myself, that when youth can talk to other youth, there's more impact than when an adult is speaking to a youth, because sometimes that feels like, oh, I'm just being preached at, or I'm just being lectured. Whereas when equals can come together and you have the conversations that you're talking about having, there's less of that kind of coercion. It's more people who are on the same place talking the same language. So I asked that question only because that's kind of my own thinking there, and I've been having lots of conversation about youth activism and things like that, and so getting youth empowered to actually do the leadership themselves. So yeah, thanks.
I think what you just heard from them and the power that you heard in their statements, this is not who we are. This is not how we do it. That's what works. When the other students in the school see that this is how we are at TJ, and this is what we do, and this is what we don't do, then that's what we're trying to do here, and that's what these students are trying to do.
Yeah.
That culture. We're changing it from a culture where we cheat and they try and catch us to. We don't do that. That's not a part of us. And these kids are the ones doing it. So yeah, I agree. I think I've seen them in the media, in their circles, and they are very powerful.
Good. The case that I mentioned earlier, like I'm cheating or I plagiarized on a paper, would that be an easy case or a difficult case?
I would say it really depends on the other elements involved. Another thing that I think determines whether a case is so-called easy or difficult is the student's attitude about it. Like we mentioned before, we've had cases where a student came before the council. They said, "Yeah, I looked at another student's paper, but I don't think what I did was cheating. Like I was coughing or I was blowing my nose or something." So it depends how the student views it. And I think because we had one student that they said that they were just looking around during an exam. So sure, if I accidentally, like my eyes glanced at their paper, that's if that was cheating, then I guess I cheated, but I don't think I cheated. So I would say that's a difficult case because the student didn't see what was wrong. They didn't see that by looking at another student's paper, that's cheating. That's copying someone else's work, their answers. And I would say easier cases are when students understand what's wrong. They come in kind of with an understanding of what's wrong, what needs to be done.
Yeah.
So it depends on their attitude and their openness to kind of admit what they've done is wrong and move forward from there.
Yeah, good. Would you say that the program is successful?
I would say that it's very successful because, like we mentioned before, restorative justice in general reduces recidivism, but also I think it's really teaching students, it's getting to the root of the problem so that a lot of times, I know at least in the past, students would say, "Oh, I just cheated on this, like, oh, no big deal, everybody does it." But I think now that we're having a big student-led movement, it's kind of, it's changing the culture. It's really changing. It's saying, this is not who we are. This is not what we do. And I think just publicizing the honor code more. In the past year, the honor code, we've changed it to be one sentence instead of like an entire page-long thing, so that students can sign and write the honor code on exams. They can sign and write it on papers that they turn in. And I think that's really powerful because it's just making students more aware of the honor code and all of the work that they do at school. And I think this is really helping students realize the importance of the honor code, the implications that cheating can have on the community.
And I think just on a case-by-case basis. So at the end of the circle, we always have a little Q&A form for the people involved to kind of say what they thought of the process. And at least for all the cases that I've been on, that I've facilitated, the students and the teachers have both said that it's been a very powerful experience for them and that they've really understood, how their actions have affected other people. So I think from that perspective, it's definitely been successful.
Great.
We're in a data-driven situation here in schools now. Things are all about data, and so I keep asking the administration what do they think and what are they seeing and what do the numbers show. What we've seen is that since we started the whole process 2 years, since we had a workshop almost 2 years ago, we've actually had an increase in reporting of violations. But we see that as a good thing because we believe that means that they're being reported. And the faculty believe that they have some faith that if we have this process, that they can do a referral and something's going to happen. It's very discouraging as a faculty member to send in a referral and then nothing be done with it. And you're thinking, I spent the time to do this. This is an important thing that's going on. You need to do something to the administration. So I think that the faculty is trusting it, and that's good. We haven't had a lot of cases. I think we've had 10 or 11 cases total, and so we haven't had a lot of cases on which to build data. And so I'm not sure how well that's going, but Vickie was saying that today actually in the school we have a TED Talk session going on. where we have some students presenting TED Talks. And you were saying one of them is
one
actually...
One of the students is doing a TED Talk on what he learned in the Restorative Justice Circle and how that has transformed his life. But in addition to what the Honor Council is doing, we also send our adult facilitators in to the school. They sometimes the administration calls us to do restorative justice around things other than academic integrity here as well. And this particular student was in a larger circle. If it involves a lot of parents, or there are a lot of issues that are a little bit too large for the students to handle, particularly with their academic workload here, then we do send our adult facilitators in. And so that student is doing a TED Talk today on what he learned in the restorative justice process earlier this year.
Thanks, Vickie, because I'm getting a couple of questions about, so is there a reason why you don't use restorative practices for other kind of behavioral or relationship problems? So it sounds like
yes,
the school is, that's just not part of the Honor Council process.
And besides that, our school doesn't have too many of those types of cases outside of Honor Code. So we don't have a lot of violence or theft. So
there isn't a lot of discipline here at TJ issues, if you will, here. But occasionally it does happen, and then they typically use a different facilitator. The administrators will call myself, and I'll send a different facilitator in for those kind of situations. So yes, it is used school-wide for discipline by the administration. The Honor Council's focus is the academic integrity cases.
And academic integrity is our biggest issue by far. I mean, I've been here 5 years, and I think we had a fight once. So, you know, other issues, other discipline things just do not occur. But academic integrity is a big concern for us here.
But I'm also assuming, though, that there would be relational issues between students and teachers that would also potentially be addressed.
That's correct, and we have. Yeah, that's correct, and we have done many of those types of processes here as well. Sometimes it's preventative. Sometimes our administrator will call us and ask us to do a circle with a family, a student. We've done some processes with parents and faculty as well. So yeah, so the administration does typically call us for preventative things as well.
Right. So I've got one question that says, it sounds like a unique school. Is it a private school? Could you talk just a little bit about TJ and what kind of school it is, and maybe why it does, why you get to make the claim that there's not many discipline problems?
And it is a true claim, I have to tell you.
Say that again, Vickie.
I said that is a real claim too, I have to tell you. It is really accurate. But do you want to talk about the school?
Yes, so TJ is it's a governor's school, so it's a selective process, an application process, and it represents Northern Virginia. So I think this year there are currently 6 municipalities in the area from which students apply, and so it's a public school. It's a free public school. But it's via application. It's actually Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology. So it's a STEM magnet school, and then it's part of the Virginia Governor's School Consortium. I think there are about 20 different governor's schools around the state, and so we're one of the, I think one of 2 all-day schools. Most of them they'll go for half the day and then attend the rest of the day at their home school. But we're a full-time school. So the students that are here are highly motivated, and they know that most of them recognize that it's a privilege that they can be here. It's not their right, and that there are other options for where they can go to school if they choose not to behave according to certain standards. So, but it doesn't. We don't get to that point. Most of them are just well-behaved kids, and that's why they've been able to achieve academically to get here in the first place.
Do you think that the program that you're talking about could work in a school that didn't have those unique characteristics?
Absolutely.
I have no doubt.
Absolutely.
Okay, I really want us to hit that. Can you talk about that a little bit?
There are kids, you've seen our kids here, our students here, Sophia and Kristin. There are kids like that in every school. There are student leaders And it doesn't matter what the school is. There are student leaders there that want their school to be better than it is, and they want to affect a change. And as long as you have those kind of students, and then an administration that's willing to support them, they can make it happen. So yeah, and I think even more so at other schools, it would be it could work. You know, our schools are, our students here are so into the academics that sometimes they know how to work the system. And so I think at another school, they're looking for a process that they see as an honest way for them to make things work. And I think they would buy it.
And I'm hoping to expand that next year. We have over 200 schools in Fairfax County, so this just happened to be the first school that contacted us for a student-led program, but our goal is, as the initiative grows and we get more staff, that we can do the same thing at other schools in the county. We just don't have the staff yet to do that, but that is our goal. I think absolutely it can work in other places.
Good. Well, I know that last month we, the webinar, and you can get access to that, was with a group of students in Houston, Texas, and it's also student-led, and the students are being trained to facilitate the restorative practices in their schools. And so, I mean, I think the potential for that, for like transformative culture shifts, I think is really high. And so I'm really glad to hear from y'all today about what's working in your school. And then let's see if we can continue to replicate that, where we really allow students to take leadership roles. So thanks for that.
We'd love to go visit any school across the country.
Take it away. Good.
We'll go anywhere.
Sure, you'll get some invitations. I've got a couple more questions before we keep going. But well, I guess we are keeping going. But a couple more questions. Two of them are about training. One of them says, "What curriculum do you use for training the students?" And then another question was about an earlier comment, Vickie, that you made when you said that somebody was officially certified. What does that mean, and who certifies and all of that? So could you speak a little bit to that?
The certification process is something we started this year in Fairfax County Public Schools because we found that we had some major issues with just going in and training people. We would do an RJ 101 that we basically created for administrators, and people would leave a 3-hour training, go back to their school, and we had a lot of issues in our system with that. And so we realized, we knew the need for fidelity from day one, but we realized that we have to have a more standard process for certifying people in the county. So we created our own certification process that comes with training and mentoring and co-facilitating. And that's become our official certification process for facilitators within the county, whether it's students or adults. So that's what I mean when I say certification. Fidelity became something in our second year of implementation that became a big issue because we do have so many schools, and it's a big system with a lot of moving parts. So we found that with the certification process, we're able to collect more data from our schools because we're collecting it from people who are certified. And we're able to get to fidelity, although it's still a struggle for us. We're in our infancy of our implementation countywide, but that's why the certification process was created. Our curriculum is, we have a lot of different training materials, but the thing that we use to train facilitators is our manual. We have our FCPS manual, which has a lot of different authors. We've used a lot of different things in there, and that's what we use for our training materials. We're constantly adding to that and upgrading that as we learn. We adapted the principles of restorative justice from Howard Zehr. When I first took this position, I actually contacted Howard and asked if we could take those principles and adapt them for schools. And so out of that, we came up with 7 principles for restorative justice, and all of our work is based on those 7 principles. And our manual goes from there. So we provide the students with a lot of information, how to write a really good agreement that's monitorable, that can go back to administration to be monitored. So those kind of things are ongoing training. We have the initial training, and then the mentoring piece takes care of those other things. In other words, like how to write a good agreement. That's a training in itself. So that's all part of our manual, and then we try to provide the mentoring for the students so that we can send adults out to help them when they write their first or second agreement.
Great.
So we really have written our own curriculum and our own manual.
Sophia and Kristin, do you feel trained? You sound equipped. You sound like you know what you're talking about, but do you feel good and comfortable and confident?
Yeah, I think that, of course, in my first circle, I was a little bit nervous, but I think that I was very well trained by Ms. Shoap.
She did a great job. She really did.
And I think now, as I'm going into my third, fourth circles, I feel very confident just because of the mentorship that I've had and learning from my peers on the council how they've taken control of their circles and kind of working together. It's definitely been a good experience, and I feel very comfortable and confident.
Good. Sophia?
Everything that Kristin said. Also, I think just learning from experience too. Definitely the training was very helpful. The manual is something that we all look back on before every single one of our circles. I know we all review it. Most of us actually still bring our manuals just there, even if we've done many circles before, just to have. Definitely for me, the most helpful thing in the training was when we actually went through and simulated circles. We did practice circles because it really helps you see kind of the order that things should be done, the process, and how to frame things. I know a lot of times we try to avoid saying, like, calling someone like, you're the violator, or, naming names for certain things. So we try to say, like, oh, this is the offender, this is the person who was harmed, this is the person who did harm, stuff like that. So it really helps you learn how to phrase things, learn how to deal with those types of situations, and that's something I learned from the training that I still use in every single one of my circles.
And I will say, too, that the manual is not, we know this is an organic process, and so the manual is really not something that our facilitators follow. It's there really as a focusing tool, but it also has all the things that we require here, the confidentiality agreement, and agreement to participate. It's important that that's standard in every school when restorative justice is done. So just the forms that are all in that manual that we can give to the students, and so everyone across the county is using the same type of forms and the same type of information. We require parental permission in Fairfax County for students to participate in restorative justice, and so those kind of things are part of the manual, so the students have all the forms they need to facilitate the process.
Great. I've still got a couple more questions here related to training. People evidently are very interested in how do you take a school or a group of students and make sure that they're ready for this kind of work. So one of the questions is, sounds like there's a lot of resources necessary to make a program this robust. So how many people are involved? Like, is it just you, Vickie, doing the training? Or do you have a team? How many facilitators at TJ are there?
We have a team of 6. We have a team of 6. There's 2 specialists and 4 what we call restorative behavior intervention teachers, and they are assigned to our middle schools. So we have 6 staff members on our restorative justice team that are available to help mentor anybody, whether it's a student or an adult in a building that's being trained to facilitate a restorative justice process. So there are 6 of us, and then that's not when you consider we have 190,000 students, that's not a big staff, but we are lucky here in Fairfax County to have the resources to actually have staff that's dedicated just to the restorative justice initiative. So there's 6 of us, and then we also have our certified facilitators who can help others and train others. And that cadre of people is growing in the county now.
Okay, and so is it that group of 6 that kind of approves the training manual, or is it bigger than that?
No, it's the group of 6 that do the training. The training manual is something that we wrote and presented at the beginning of the initiative in the summer of 2011. That was vetted and reviewed by my director, Marianne Panarelli, who's Director of Intervention and Prevention Services. So yes, everything that is out in the system is reviewed by someone in our department. So it is vetted and reviewed by our directors before it becomes something that we use in our program.
Good. Okay. I've got a couple more questions that are about the process itself, but there's one more kind of technical question that would be probably either a Vickie or a Dr. Stickler question. Somebody's asking about the annual budget. Like, is there a cost that's connected to running a program like this? If you're going into schools to start restorative justice, how do you work with budgets and the structure?
Well, I think that's one for the school board, not me or Dr. Stickler. My position was hired by the school board, and we've grown from 1 position to 6, and we hope to continue to grow. But you know, you might want to address that here, TJ.
Yeah, you know, you mentioned resources here at the school. I think, you know, I mentioned earlier that John Strucker, basically our job is to get pizza, and that's our budget. Is that when we're having the training, we get lunch, and I think we make flyers, but you know, we don't have a big budget here. So the resource, you know, Vickie's been in and has worked with us for these past 2 years, and she's a fantastic resource. But as far as at the school, we have 2 teacher advisors, and we have a dozen kids nearly a dozen kids that are on the team, and that's our resources. And so, you know, once you get the training in there, and you know, if there's an RJ process in your school district, I guess that makes it easier. If you're a teacher and administrator interested, I guess you go to a conference or a workshop, and then you start it. But you've seen the students are the ones doing it, so it's most of the time they bring in the cookies.
And of course, we have the providing of the training materials, the manuals, and all the training materials we have. That's of course included in our budget, in the specialist budget for under special services. So we bring all the training materials with us when we go into a school. That's part of our budget.
Great. Are there other technical details that are important for us to make sure people know about in this moment?
I can't think of anything. Can you?
No, I mean, you know, you mentioned there's 190,000 students here, and we have 6 people that are paid as RJ staff.
That's correct.
That's pretty low budget.
It's pretty low budget. It is.
So
yes.
And
our staff is overworked almost every day. So yes.
So, but I think once the process is going, once you're doing it, the schools are what make it happen. And you know, whatever level in the school, whether it's the administration or teachers or students, the schools are where it's happening. And the on-site budget, the on-site needs are just not that great. It's just a matter of taking the time. That's the biggest resource that it costs us, is that it's not a quick process. I'm not saying it's lethargic, but it's not as fast as, okay, you're suspended 3 days, see you.
And our overall goal in Fairfax County is to create sustainability at schools. So that's our goal, is to go in and train people and mentor them and be there as a resource, but that they take it from there. And that is our goal for sustainability. And I found that when you go into a school and you do a presentation or a training, almost always people step up. They step up. I want to be part of this. I want to be a facilitator. I want to be an advisor. People do step up, and regardless if there's a budget or not, to do this work, there's such a need for it.
Okay. There are 2 questions that are kind of related, and I'm going to read one of them because it's long, but I think there's some important pieces in here. I appreciate all you've shared today. As I've listened, it seems that the focus of your discussion is mostly on the offenders and their participation in the circle processes. Can you speak to the participation of the harmed parties? How does the process address hesitation by the harmed parties? Do you ever involve other concerned community members in the circle who might not be directly involved in the infraction?
Yes, we, in addition to having the person who committed the honor code infraction and the teacher or the administrator or whomever was aware of this, we also include one of our faculty advisors, and either an administrator. But I think another important piece of this puzzle is the student representative. And this student gives kind of the feedback from the school community of how it affects the student. And so since the entire restorative justice process that we use is completely kept confidential, we choose a student representative from the Honor Council so that they're comfortable and familiar with the restorative justice process, and they're able to give the perspective of another student in the community without this getting out. Also, the person who was harmed or the teacher in this situation, they have the option of, like I said before, everything is voluntary. We have had some resistance from teachers involved that maybe they didn't want to participate in the circle, and we explain to them what our process is, what our process does, the impacts that it has, and then they decide that they wanted to go through with it. So usually teachers, we follow the same process as with the student. We meet with them for a pre-conference. We have the circle with them, and we really want their voice to be heard as well, so that the student can understand how their honor code infraction has affected them, and so that the teacher can really tell the student how they think they should move forward from it.
I also know we had a case, with integrity violations, a lot of times the other students aren't aware that something's happened, and so they're not involved. But we had a case last year where there were things matched up on papers, and so 2 students were suspected, and it turned out 1 student had done it, but the other student knew that there was this whole situation going on. And so that student sat in, was a part of the circle process as a victim, as a harmed individual. And that student was very clear. Look what you've done. I've been called in here, and the teacher suspected me, and now my name. And so that student let the individual know, you made a big mistake here. And so they were part of that process, and their concern was the main one that was met. I mean, the student that had committed the infraction really realized how badly he had impacted that student, and apologized, and went out of his way to try to make things right with that student. And so, I think it's very important that when those situations arise, that those individuals be involved in the circle, and that their needs are met as well.
Absolutely, and victim sensitivity training is a big part of our training, our restorative justice training here. The students, I don't know if you all remember, but that was a big part of our training. That was very eye-opening for them to think about victimization, and so that is a big part of how we train our facilitators.
And I think going back to the whole power of the process, I think this idea is definitely a big part of that power, having the victim involved, and that's really one of the big things that's unique about the process and what makes it distinct from the traditional punitive process.
Yeah. So one of the core, I think, components of restorative justice is facilitating healthy relationships. And what I hear you talking about is that going through a process like this that could lead to further conflict between teachers and students who have violated the honor code. This gives a way to kind of restore that relationship so that they can move forward together in their classroom.
It's
about
redemption, I think, in a large way. It's how does this student put themselves back in the community? And when a teacher or another student sees how sincere and sees the person that did the wrong, and sees that they really want to do right and make things right, they're the ones that bring them back in. And so them being a part of that process, that relationship is, I've seen it, it's better than it was before. It builds a real strong relationship because they realize they're reaching out and extending a hand to this person that needs their help.
Okay. Well, our time is about up. I want to see if anybody has last words before we close up. Anything else you'd like to share before we shut down?
I think we definitely would be more than willing to speak to other people that are interested in pursuing this.
Great.
We'd love to help out.
And I just want to say I'm proud of these students. I can't be more proud of them today. I have not told them anything to say. I sent them your questions. I'm proud of you both. Great job.
Yeah, you both did an excellent job. And again, one of the things that we want to highlight are our students' perspectives. And so we really do appreciate you being courageous enough to join us and being so deeply steeped. And I appreciate the way that you're using the language of restorative justice. You really seem to understand the connections between what you're doing and the underlying philosophy. I'm thrilled. And Dr. Stickler, thank you so much for your pizza ordering skills.
Yes, we've gotten practice.
Well, I have to tell you one more really quick, great story. When I first met Dr. Stickler, he was not really on board. Like he said, we stopped in the middle of the first train, and he said, whoa, wait a minute, this is not what I thought it was going to be. And wasn't on board at the beginning. And when I came back for the second or third time, I saw him walking down the hallway with a big starfish in his pocket. I don't know if you remember this. And I said to him, is that your talking piece? And he said, yes. And then I knew we had him. From there, he had the big starfish talking piece in his pocket. So so I had to tell that story, Shawn.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
Good. Well, I am going to turn things over to Jordan again, and he will close us up.
Great. Thank you, Kathy. And I would like to thank everyone again for joining us on this webinar, and a special thanks to Shawn, Vickie, Sophia, and Kristin. I echo Kathy's comments. I'm just really inspired, impressed, and just filled with hope by the work that you all are doing and what we've heard from you today. So please continue to do what you're doing and continue to inspire those around you. I'm just going to close with a couple brief announcements of what we have coming up. As we mentioned earlier, this is part of a 5-part series that we have on restorative justice in education, with a special thanks to Coming to the Table for making this webinar series possible. Our next webinar will be on June 15th at 3 o'clock. The title is, But That Teacher Doesn't Like Me, The Importance of a Relational Pedagogy. And in this webinar, Dorothy Vondering and Brenda Morrison will be our guests for the discussion about ways in which restorative justice can improve the relationships between students and teachers in particular. And many times students feel that their teachers do not like them, unfortunately. This lack of mutual respect interferes with student behavior, but more importantly, it interferes with learning. And restorative justice is grounded on the central principle that healthy relationships do matter. And during this conversation, Dorothy and Brenda will share with us about relational pedagogy, emphasizing the importance of building relationships and discussing how restorative justice in education helps teachers to do that. The Zehr Institute for Restorative Justice is nested within the Center for Justice and Peacebuilding, which is located at Eastern Mennonite University in the Shenandoah Valley in Harrisonburg, Virginia. Eastern Mennonite University offers a full range of undergraduate programs, including peacebuilding and development majors. We also have graduate programs such as the Master's in Conflict Transformation, Master's in Education, and more. And there's also the Eastern Mennonite Seminary and the Summer Peacebuilding Institute and STAR, which I will talk about just real quickly. The Summer Peacebuilding Institute is taking place currently, right now, on our campus. We are in the 3rd session, and there are a couple courses that are focusing on or providing more training and information on restorative justice in different contexts. We saw a couple questions that unfortunately we couldn't get to today that had to do with restorative justice in more macro applications. I might recommend the course taking place June 4th through June 12th, Justice in Transition. restorative and indigenous applications in a post-war context. And that will be with CJP's Carl Stauffer and guest faculty Jimmy Juma. The Strategies for Trauma Awareness and Resilience is a research-based trauma program, and it's a training that began in 2001. And the STAR training brings together theory and practices from neurobiology, conflict transformation, human security, spirituality, and restorative justice to address the needs of trauma-impacted individuals and communities. And this program is really, really great for individuals and organizations whose work brings them into contact with populations dealing with current or historic trauma. If you're interested in those courses, please check out our website. The dates are listed here on this webinar, and this webinar will be available online, the recording as well. As I mentioned, I'm currently a student with the Center for Justice and Peace Building. The Masters in Conflict Transformation is a practice-based curriculum exploring nonviolent and restorative responses to conflict at all different levels. Please check out the website if you are interested in the program or would like to know more about that. We also offer a restorative justice graduate certificate for those who are not able to commit to a full-time program at this time or would like to complement their working experience with a class. I know that we have at least one class that we've done via the internet for those who are not able to relocate to Harrisonburg and can take that class from a distance. So keep an eye on our website and look for opportunities to get involved or to get more training and more education around these topics. Lastly, it's very exciting. We are developing through the Masters in Education program a full Master's in Restorative Justice in Education. And students in the MA program can take an RJE concentration specifically, or students can, and working professionals can elect an RJE graduate certificate. And again, it's great for working professionals and those who are in the field and would like more training and certification in the concepts, the practice, the theory of what we've been listening to and talking about this afternoon. And with that, I'll hand it back over to Kathy. And thank you everyone for joining us.
And all I will say is thank you again to our guests, Vickie Shoap, Dr. Stickler, and Kristin Myers and Sofia Moses. Thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate you, and thank you for everyone else who joined us online. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy.
Bye-bye, y'all.
Bye.